before we start, to thank His Excellency. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with me on this and agreeing to have this different sort of interview. And I think everybody here today, I think one of the reasons why we're having a very high crowd after such COVID times is mainly because get to know you more from a personal level. So if you allow me to start. We have 4 directions that we would like to focus this interview on. Taking it back from the beginning of your journey, since you graduated, how you started, where did you work, going into family, which I know is a very important part of your life and you take it very seriously. You working in the private sector, which is definitely an edge that we all need to understand. And something that uncommonly we see, which is the transition from private to public sector. We always see the other way around. So I think there is a hidden story that definitely you would let us know about. And then, of course, becoming the Minister of Petroleum, and then your concern and priorities when it comes to youth and women in the sector. So let me start by asking you this very simple question. When you were young, what was your dream job?
Perhaps at the time when we were late 70s, early 80s, and this was just after the 1973 Victory War and the peace treaty in 79. And what was there at that time was the reconstruction, the new housing and developing cities and development. And therefore I dreamed to be a civil engineer. And I wanted to be a contractor. And I want to have like a big engineering firm. And this was my dream. I mean, at that time, when we joined the Faculty of Engineering, we were like 1,600 in Cairo University Faculty of Engineering. About 800 to 1,000 went to civil department. And the balance was through the other departments in Faculty of Engineering. So I was like a normal young man who wanted to be a civil engineer, and this was my dream. So and this was how the country was after the opening of the economy and having the Port Said free zone city, all that, as I said, encountered the need of reconstruction after the war. So this was normal. What happened? What happened is that for a reason or another, and perhaps people, my fellow colleagues from engineering, they would understand what may happen at preparatory year, I'dadi Handasa. So I was not lucky to be among the people who were accepted at the civil engineering. So I needed to have, and I had all the other choices of mechanical or mining under what do we call the قسم التعدين, or electrical engineering or others. So I thought that mechanical engineering, after consulting some good friends of my parents, that mechanical engineering is more generic and is the let me say the foundation of engineering is mechanical engineering, and this is what I was told. Yeah. So people would said, why don't you go to petroleum engineering? Why didn't you go to chemical engineering, electrical engineering? Nevertheless, this was the choice, and I think that I am happy that I followed this career of mechanical engineering, whereby I think for those who are here with me, would really confirm that mechanical engineering has got a wider spectrum and overseeing more of different engineering disciplines, and it's easy for us to get a common understanding to different other activities. Nevertheless, I believe that engineering in itself, I'm proud to be an engineer, and definitely when I look to any of my teams and look at his CV and see that he is an engineer, perhaps I'm more biased to engineers. Sorry for that, for geologists, but by default, I am biased to engineers. So this is briefly how it started, and I think that this is a normal story for a young student having يعني in my time 86% في ثانوية عامة is not bad. So I was accepted على طول في التنسيق في جامعة القاهرة, هندسة القاهرة, and this is what and how it happened. Yeah.
Great. So you studied 5 years, I think, engineering in Cairo University, and I'm sure during that time in your final year you were considering of what you really wanted to work as your first job. So, like any student at that time, I'm sure you applied in so many different companies. Tell us, what was actually your first job after graduating?
Actually, you are right, and believe me, actually, I have never thought of oil and gas at all. And at that time, I had the good opportunity during the summer holidays to have different training periods overseas, whether in France, whether in Switzerland, in different big international and multinational companies. But you know, being still a student, you haven't yet thought of your final destination and your real desire of you want to be a successful person. Anyway, so when I graduated, actually at that time General Motors was back in Egypt and were having a big factory at the 6th of October, and they were doing some big industrial manufacturing there in 6th of October. So I started to get in contact with the people there through some friends, like any other person would do, like applications and so forth. But at the same time, here comes someone by word of mouth saying that, well, we have, I heard someone telling us that they are looking for a young mechanical engineer in a company called Caltex. And Caltex is a subsidiary of Chevron. So anyway, I said, okay, that's fine. So I didn't have any thought of that. They took an appointment for me, and I went and I met the general manager who interviewed me, and like in 2-3 weeks, they gave me the offer, and I did accept it at that time, although this was not where I wanted, or I was not like that attracted to the extent to be very much motivated. I was saying that it's better than nothing until I get what I wanted. So anyway, it ended up by getting the job there as a junior engineer, and this was my first and last employer before joining government. So actually it was Caltex at the time, Chevron when they merged Texaco and Chevron. So as I said, it is one of the brands of the super major Chevron Texaco. So when I joined then in January '87, I passed all my career with them until I left in October 2010. So almost 24 years with a very, very diverse and interesting and successful learning and career through the jobs that I had within the company, with the different stages that I passed through, and with the different changes that happened globally and to the company definitely, and perhaps with our audience here coming from different multinational companies and different companies, the mergers that happens and the divestments that happens, different strategies had given us and helped me as well to understand this kind of restructures and changes to global big firms like Chevron, for example. So I think this is how it started as a junior engineer there. And I think that I was really lucky, alhamdulillah, at that time, because this company has been in Egypt since 1936. But for reasons of whatever, in late 50s, early 60s, reasons of nationalization and whatever, so they left actually the downstream activities completely. And then when I joined in early 87, they had decided to come back to the market. So as the company grew, I grew as well, and it was a good learning experience for me through this journey of 24 years.
Excellent. So January 1987 was your first job at Caltex here in Egypt as a mechanical engineer. Can I ask you, what was your first salary and what did you do with it?
Yes, of course, I remember very well my first salary, and it was 350 pounds, and this was too much at the time, by the way. This was 350 Egyptian pounds at the time, was a very good salary. And I was very happy, of course, as a young man earning 350 pounds was too much. Very excited. Of course, I saved a lot of this amount because at the time you wanted to show that you are grown up, you are a man, you can be independent, and starting to think of getting engaged and married and so forth. So I started to have my own savings for that reason. Yeah.
So you made 350 pounds and you were saving most of it.
Yes.
But you didn't.
Some good amount.
But you didn't tell us what was the first thing you bought with those 350. Oh, even part of that one.
Well, I really don't remember, but I wanted just to say that it was a good amount, honestly.
That's great. And
good salary.
So, how old were you when you worked in Chevron at Caltex, that first job?
I was like 23 and a half, something like that.
Okay. And would you remember the best advice ever that your parents have given you during that time or even before?
Yeah, well, you get a lot of advices during your life, of course, from your parents. But I think that the things that I would very much always do, and this is something that I would say my father was telling me, that you need to do always the good things and don't wait for the reward. So do good and do all the favors and the good things that you can do to people without waiting for a reward for that. And this is something very important. Perhaps another advice from my mother was to be self-confident. Be self-confident, and this is something very important as well. So, I mean, these two advices, I think that I keep them always in my mind, and I walk the talk. I mean, and this is how I do my things.
Absolutely. So moving on to family, you did mention that part of your salary you were always trying to save them to get ready to get to married and get to this family life. How long have you actually been married?
Now, I've been now for 27 years, 27 and a half perhaps, something like that, yeah.
So when you worked, it took you how many years until you got engaged or got actually committed to a marriage life? A couple of years?
No, actually more. Because at that time also, I mean, young men would have sometimes not successful. You got engaged one time and then we broke and then you get another opportunity and things of that kind.
Yeah.
So and then you say مستعجل على ايه? Don't rush to get married. It ended up that I got married at the age of 32, by the way. So it took me some time being a bachelor. So from this 350 pounds, I made big money. So when I got married, perhaps at that time, my salary was around 3,000 pounds.
Okay.
Something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, but I did not get married with the 3,000 pounds. Of course, I got the support of my parents.
So, with all the responsibilities that are on your shoulders that we see, and you're always either in the office or in meetings or outside the country. Just tell us, how do you create the balance between your professional life and your family?
Of course, currently it is really difficult, but actually this is very important for all of us. I mean, to keep always together with the family, especially the kids. Because you see them growing while you discover that you didn't spend enough time with them while they are growing up. And actually this happens quickly. Kids grow up quickly. So for the last few years, I actually, perhaps for the first or second year of being minister, I did not take care much of that. But I made a point that when I came back home at 8:30 p.m., I make sure that at least I have 10 minutes with each of them. So, I mean, to keep in touch and to let them see that I follow what they are doing and I care about what they said. This is one side. The other side, actually, I think that you all agree with me about what technology has brought us. So we are, of course, on a WhatsApp group family. So at least this also keeps you with your family online connected. The most important is on Friday, and this is the only day that we get some rest. So I try to make sure that either I get breakfast with them, which doesn't happen oftenly because either they sleep till late in the noon, especially the grown-ups, but the little girl perhaps is the only one whom I enjoy having breakfast with her on Friday, or sometimes we could have, doesn't happen oftenly, but I make sure that this happens, to have late lunch, early dinner together on a Friday outing there. But I make sure that at least once a year we all get together during summer holidays. I don't get holidays, but I mean at Eid holidays specifically, where we all get 5 days a week, whatever, it depends on the length of the Eid holidays, that we are all together. And this is very important, and then I try to get them with me together, traveling here or there, so that they do not escape with their friends. And this is, I think that you all practice this always, that now when you have elder kids, they all say that I want to go to my friend, we are going out there, spending some time there. So important is when we are together, I take them in a third place where there are no friends. So I make sure that they have no choice except me. But this happens once a year, which is good, alhamdulillah, anyway. But again, the balance is very important, because as I say, we don't want to regret the time where we discovered that our kids have grown up and we didn't enjoy the time seeing them younger.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now, going to the private sector, and I didn't know this, that you've worked from your first job until your last job in the private sector in the same, actually, organization. So, is that one of your key successes during your time in the private sector? Do you consider that a key success?
Well, I mean, it depends. Perhaps other people have been able to change careers, change jobs, or change employers. In my case, perhaps I had this one employer career with a big company like Chevron. In my opinion, was a blessing, because I think that it has given me all the experience and the exposure needed because of its diversity. Actually, in Chevron, we were operating actually from what they call east of Suez till Australia, and this was the countries where they operated. So this has given me some good experience dealing with Africa, Middle East, and Asia, and has given me the opportunity to meet other colleagues and other who became friends, other cultures and other markets during this career path. Not only that, it has also given me the opportunity to have some different overseas assignments, perhaps in Nairobi, Kenya, and this was one of the hubs that were there in East Africa, as well in Singapore, and these were important countries for the operations there at that time. Singapore was head office for Caltex at the time, and Kenya was another regional office for East Africa. And then also I ended up by an important assignment in Cape Town, South Africa, where also not only an important position, but an important country, culturally, geographically, and economically. Actually, this has helped me also understanding different ways of dealing with people. You know, a country like South Africa is unique. South Africa is a melting pot where it's diverse culture of South Africans. So you have the white Africans, you have the colored, and you have the Indians, and you have the black Africans, and all of them, they are South Africans. And you being a foreigner there as well, you become another fifth culture coming, and this had all helped me understanding how they live, how they deal with each other, how the laws there are applied. So it was a very interesting 2 years that I spent there in South Africa also. In addition, of course, to a beautiful country like South Africa, and a beautiful city like Cape Town. I think that this part also of the career being a big multinational company, American based in San Ramon, California, is another culture. Californian standards is completely different than Houston or Texas standards. So this has also given me a lot of knowledge and capabilities of having to live with and to understand how to communicate with different cultures and different operational levels between, and the operational speeds also between different organizations. I think that's why I say that I was blessed to have this experience. We were at the time, as I said, a brand called Caltex, not that very well recognized internationally. In the year 2000, the two shareholders were Chevron and Texaco merged, and then we started to belong to a big company, very well viewed. By the year 2002, we became Chevron. So, and others were just marketing brands. So therefore, the level of the organization has increased from just a regional brand to a big, super major company with a very sophisticated and very important standards. So therefore, I think that this has all reflected into my knowledge, my experience, my skills, and that had helped me very much while joining government in 2011.
We're coming to that part because that's going to be a very interesting answer that I would like to hear. With all that you've said right now, with the diverse experience in working in different cultures, the diverse experience you've gained in working in Chevron throughout these years, you've reached to top level executive positions. I think the latest one was the one in South Africa. Why did you come back? And why did you come back to work in the government?
Well, sometimes you reach a position whereby you start feeling that I think I had it here, and I didn't know that I'm going to join government at that time, but I was saying that I think that it is the time to pay back to my country. And this is, I remember very well discussing this specific topic with my boss at that time in South Africa, and I was saying that they were saying, why do you want to leave? Why do you want to go back? I said, I think it's time for me to pay back to my country, although I haven't had engaged with the government yet. But I felt that it's about time. I felt that I was mature enough at that time, and then I had 24 years of good career, good experience, good learnings, where I can go back and implement those to my country somehow. So this was the expression that I was using. I want to pay back to my country. So anyways, I started the process, and I came back in October 2010, just after the Football World Cup 2010 in South Africa. We enjoyed attending the World Cup there. And then few months later, November, December, actually, His Excellency Sameh Fahmy approached me and appointed me in January 2011. So, although I had not had any plans or ideas of targeting EGBC, targeting the ministry, any of these government entities or state corporations. The idea is only that I had a good experience with Chevron 24 years, and I think that I can do something to my country. This was the idea. So I think that here comes the role of leadership also. When I talk about His Excellency Sameh Fahmy, that how he was seeing some potential in a person like me that could perhaps at that time, January 2011, add value to the industry in Egypt. So I think that this is what happened. I was appointed on the 24th of January, as you may know, and the 25th we have a revolution. So this is the transition from a multinational to government, if we may say.
So it was totally unplanned But so when you took your job at EGBC, when His Excellency Sameh Fahmy appointed you, and how did your experience, your 24 years experience in Chevron, reflect in your job at EGBC? Did it help, or did you face challenges?
I think it helped much, and I think my key success at the beginning, and how I was able to get into and landing softly within the organization and within together with our partners, was the communication skills. And I think that this was the key success. And this is how, when I landed at EGBC in January 2011, with the January Revolution, I think, and most of our partners are here with us, the only door that they were seeking was my door, my office. So all partners were knocking my door, coming to me, because there was a revolution. They didn't find anybody to talk with. At that time, people were hesitating, my colleagues at EGBC, and they had doubts about everything. There were fears and anxiety. I mean, people were not confident. For me, coming from external place, I have no history there. I did not have anything to fear of. I opened my doors. I was receiving our partners, helped in solving the problems at that time. And I think that also part of the success story there is how successfully I was communicating with my colleagues within EGBC, as I said, with our partners, plus I had the CEO of EGBC at that time, Engineer Hani Dahi, who was also coming from Petrojet, so was not much familiar with the operations at EGBC, so he depended a lot on me for managing the file of foreign partners. And I think that this was a good combination of having a CEO like Engineer Dahi and myself, where different roles were assigned. So I think This has given, not necessarily me, but this has given the sector some comfort of having someone where they could have communicated with and they could have conveyed their messages to the leadership of EGBC. So not only the CEO, but my deputy colleagues at that time as well. So this was very important at the time, really, of unrests with the transition period of 2011 till 2013. This was the worst years ever, and the stressful times ever we had at EGBC. I'm not talking about the shortages of products and so forth. No, I'm talking at least we did not know whom we are dealing with, what's happening, instability. The picture was not clear. There was no strategy. There was nothing. So you were just managing the day-to-day problems as they occurs, and you would attend to solve them one by one. It was very difficult, and perhaps people at that time were telling me, now you are regretting that you came back. I said, no, on the contrary. This proves that I was needed, and perhaps I was able to do something different and to support and to help this transition, because the frustration that our partners were having, I couldn't have explained it to you. You couldn't have imagined the frustration the partners had. And I recall all companies, with no exceptions, international, regional, local, they had all frustrations, all of them. And with different magnitude, definitely, but with no doubt that I was very happy to be able to do something. Actually, when we talk about partners, because we are here talking about upstream conventions, but actually also our suppliers and vendors. We had a lot of problems with our vendors and suppliers, a lot of problems, because suddenly everybody disappeared. I mean, the people whom they have dealt with, they disappeared. So nobody was there to attend and to represent EGBC's voice because of, as I said, the uncomfort and the anxiety and the inconfident people there due to what happened, as you know, of trials and people taken into courts and so forth. Yes. So you would see that all the staff there at EGBC was really afraid, and they needed this confidence, they needed this reassurance, and at the same time you needed to do the work. So someone needs to address the partners, the suppliers, the vendors. So I think this experience that I had helped a lot into this critical times that Egypt passed through, especially when we talk about our sector and EGBC.
لا يعني looking to what you're just saying and summarizing it, as we say in Arabic, ربنا بيسبب الأسباب. يعني you worked 24 years in the private sector, you decided to come back to your hometown with no plans to join the government, and then you're back, you get appointed in November to join the government. January you have a revolution, lots of responsibilities. Couple of years ahead you become minister. So that's what when we say ربنا بيسبب الأسباب. So if we go back, when you heard that you received a call and you've learned that you've become the Minister of Petroleum, what was your first feeling? Were you expecting it? And
I was not expecting it because I was not expecting any of these milestones that I was telling you about. يعني as a normal human being, normal person, when you hear this appointment or to be a minister, of course, I got worried, I was afraid, definitely. Perhaps I didn't sleep well that night. I'm a human being, so I was not a minister before, so definitely there is a first time always. So very worried, very afraid.
who was the first one you
Surprised.
called? Who did you call when you first knew?
My mother. يعني ربنا يخليها لي وربنا يخلي لكم امهاتكم ويرحم اللي ترحموا. I mean, perhaps all you know about this. I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are. In front of your mother, you are still a kid, definitely. يعني مش كده ولا إيه؟
True.
فربنا يخلي لكم والدتكم ويرحم اللي توفى.
So, when you took the job and you took the responsibility, and you know it's not in another uncertain time of arena where you have lots of challenges, gas supply, electricity cuts. So you knew that you were taking a huge responsibility on your shoulder. And the years before, you had a huge responsibility in EGBC. What was the first objective you wanted to achieve as Minister of Petroleum?
Really, at that time, the only one thing that I needed to do is to ensure the security of supply. It was a challenge. And thanks God that when I became a minister, this was in September 2015, we had, starting from the end of August, early September, started to spark up a small problem of gas oil, diesel, in the south of Egypt. And then we were getting into the Eid holidays. It was Eid al-Adha. And then we started to have a problem growing for diesel shortage in south of Egypt. And this was the last one, anyway, alhamdulillah, for any of the products. It was in September 2015. And alhamdulillah, we have not heard about any problem in LPG, in gas oil, in gasoline since then. So the first priority was always the security of supply. You remember from the times of, and the worst was in 2013, 2014, the queues of cars in front of the service stations, queues for gasoline, for diesel, for LPG bottles. This was a nightmare, and for anyone in our field, it was a nightmare. At the same time, the shortages that we had in natural gas, and some of the blackouts, our colleagues from electricity, they were saying, well, we do not have gas, but actually this was the other part that they did not have installed capacity of electricity. But when they saw that we are that kind, accepting to take the responsibility of not having natural gas or fuel oil at that time, mazut, so they were just putting on our shoulders more and more of blames. So this was at the time the nightmare. So for me, being a minister at that time was the first priority, is to ensure the supplies of products and the security of these products, whether it was natural gas or gasoline or diesel.
So I have two more questions. With all the responsibilities that you are facing on daily basis and your commitments, but I do have to say that the one thing you're doing very well is that you take youth as a big priority, and I think this is one of the reasons why lots of the industry youth consider you as a role model, which is something very unique in our sector, to have a minister who's close to his young professionals and young people. What is the one statement that you would give them now?
Well, I believe in that because I think that I was lucky that I had the chance and I had leaders who had given me this opportunity to groom me up and to invest in me and to give me the opportunity. So I have also to pay back to my youth fellow colleagues, whereby likewise you see me here sitting, being your minister. Someday you will come here. So definitely I owe my teams to develop them, to spend in them the time, the investment, to groom them up likewise. So I remember when I was young at the Chevron time, how they were, and we had the selection process for future leaders. And no wonder that I was among these future leaders programs that I had over the in '93. It was one of the important milestones, what they called it at that time, a Caltex development program, and we spent like 3 months in Dallas, Texas, and perhaps later in 2006 in San Ramon in California at the Chevron time, another program whereby we had to, after also like 3 months of intense development programs, taking us into different regional operational regions in the system, and then back to the head office in San Ramon, addressing our CEO or executive downstream president. At that time was Mike Worth, who is now the chairman of Chevron, and I personally, my colleagues appointed me to talk on their behalf, and I addressed Mike Worth at that time in 2006 with our briefing on what our case study was. So this is how the investment was put into me as well as other colleagues. So therefore, I feel in my position obliged as part of my responsibility to develop our future leaders. So that's why part of our modernization program, I have made this first ever program, which is the middle management program. And actually, once I spoke about it with our partners here, they all gave me the support, and they got engaged, and they really invested in our people, and they are still continuously helping us, giving this opportunity to our future leaders. I believe in our youth. I believe in their skills and their capabilities. What they only need is to be given the opportunity. And I think that I was able, and I'm trying to continue doing that, and not only on a personal level now, but I'm cascading that down to the organization, the entire organization, so that all the leaders, the current leaders, would also believe in this concept of developing the future leaders and to dedicate these special programs on an ongoing basis. So it does not just be tied up with my name. After I go, this should continue like that as part of the process of developing the future leaders. So that's why I'm committed to youth, because you will never be able to make sure of a successful organization or a successful industry without having a continuous developing machine to make sure that you have a continuation of different teams and generations to take the lead on a continuous basis. So I think that we have proven to be successful because we have wonderful young teams with us, and young women and young men with us, and they have proven good potential success as well as and role in the organization, and we were able to assign them into different jobs lately. Not only that, I have always been receiving good feedback from the companies where they are having their on-the-job training overseas. I get a report on each and every of the ones that we have selected, and all the feedback has always been very positive. So I'm very proud of my teams and of my colleagues, and I'm sure that the future is much better.
Women, they always say that the oil and gas sector is a man-dominant sector, but what you've created in a diversity of gender in your own companies, why do you also give the gender woman concern?
I think that we all know that, and it has been proven. I mean, we see all at our homes and our families the capabilities of women. They can do a lot of things at one time, and you can depend on them and rely on them, and they have this capability of doing different jobs at the same time. In the oil and gas sector is no different than other sector. The idea is that you need only also to select the proper job, let me say, and give them the opportunity to show their skills, and you can rely on them. I think that over the last 5-6 years, we've been able to demonstrate that empowering women has also given us good results, and it is not in order to look good in front of other entities or other countries or other cultures to show that we are engaging in our organization with women. No, actually, because we believe, and I believe, that they have this capacity, they have the skills. You need just to give the opportunity for them to apply these skills. So I think that in all our organizations now, you can see that, and in all our development courses and programs that you see, we have always a composition of women, and I have in some of the teams perhaps more than 50% of the team are young ladies. The idea is that people wouldn't believe until you get to work closely with them, that they are very much committed. And when you ask for a task to be performed, they would fulfill it correctly, timely, and sometimes they would exceed your expectations. So I really take this opportunity to greet all the women that we have in our oil and gas industry, whether private sector or joint ventures, or in our organization at the Ministry or EGBC or any of our state companies. So I greet them and thank them and ask them to continue what they are doing and to keep it up and to get all what and the motivations that they are needed, that they need will be received, and they should rest assured that I will always, not only me personally, but also my organization will always be supporting ladies and young women in our sector, inshallah.
So can you be supporting all the women and one man, myself? That'll be good. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to thank His Excellency Tarek and Molla, Mr. Upstream, the son, the father, the leader.
Shukran.
And before we end this live interview, I want to thank you, Your Excellency, for allowing us to have this live interview. On behalf of Egypt Oil and Gas and the Egypt Oil and Gas Committee, we would like to present you with a small token of appreciation.
Thank you, Muhammad.